There's something that Cowboys fans always want out of Jerry, though. They want the accountability. And they want us to ask him, when are you going to fire the GM? Because they think that somehow he'll be like, oh, wow, hadn't considered that before. All right, I'll do it. Yesterday, I thought Jerry had a couple different moments of reflection and taking the ownership of the failures more so than he typically does. Now, don't mistake me, guys. Before you hear these things, he is not going to say, I'm considering firing the GM. Yeah. So that's not happening. But we'll see if you think that this is a acceptable amount of accountability for just this season. You're probably not going to think it's enough for the last 30 years. But starting things off, we've heard
By the way,
lot.
Let me give you some of those numbers just to make it sting a little bit more. As obviously the NFC East streak that may never happen again, that was broken, right? We had not had a back-to-back winner in the NFC East since the Eagles won 4 straight from 0-1 to 0-4. And Philadelphia goes back-to-back in the division. And then everyone sits there and looks at the Cowboys for the first 30 Super Bowls, Florio had this. First 30 Super Bowls, the Cowboys played in the game to get there 16 times. In the last 30 years, not one. Every other NFC team has made a conference championship game since 2010. Everyone has made the conference championship game.
Yeah, and remember,
since 2010.
What's your point?
That stat used to be Cowboys and Commanders until last year, and the Lions until 2 years ago. So in the last 2 years, it's obviously has gotten 2 of the 3 teams have joined we've been to a conference championship game.
And it happened in a year, as Nick Eatman tweeted, he'll join us at 9:20. For the second time in franchise history, you had 2 1,000-yard receivers. If I told you this before the season, Pickens and Lamb are going to have 1,000 apiece. Javonte's going to give you 1,000 on the ground, and Dak's going to have 4,000 yards passing. You're like, I feel good about that. That's probably a playoff berth. They miss. And it happened also in 2019. Dak's the only player to be included in both years. They missed the playoffs both with 2,000-yard receivers, a 4,000-yard passer, and a 1,000-yard rusher.
Yeah, that's not good. Those are not positive statistics at all. And Jerry knows how not positive this is because he was getting kicked yesterday a little bit. And obviously a lot of questions about Matt Eberflus. That has saved Jerry in a lot of ways, oddly enough. Matt Eberflus has been so bad that people are not even willing to totally think about what Jerry's hand potentially could have been in this season. But he was asked yesterday after kind of going off on the defense and talking about things. This is Cut 30 Peyton. He was asked, okay, well, what is the front office's role in the defense being what it is?
Well, I think that's to be good, and the very fact that ultimately you point your finger right back at you on who hired Matt Eberflus. So my point is, the whole thing is real easy to sit here and say that you could have done things differently, but that goes with the territory. And anytime you ultimately make the ultimate decision, then you've got to look at that and weigh it.
Yeah, and it's the he kind of referenced the line there, the old anytime you're pointing a finger, you got 3 pointing back at you. So he's a little bit, he's owning up to, hey, I hired Eberflus, I did that, so I've got to own that. Let's see if it got any better. The more he stood out
that's
there.
That's why you got to point like this, where they're pointing sideways,
or just with the whole hand. You got to go like this, You like that.
Like this. This is how Paulie Walnuts used to do it in Sopranos.
That's a good way to do it. Then you get by on the technicality. All right, I was kind of surprised by this question, and it was Clarence Hill. So when you hear the question, you'll go, oh, okay, that makes sense. That was Clarence. He asked Jerry, have you gotten used to the bitter ending to your seasons over the last 30 years?
I really am better when I'm getting my ass kicked than I am when I'm having success. And I will eat the cheese. And but when it's not there and when you've got to do some hard things to do, then I do know how to change. And that's frankly how I got here. For better or for worse. As we stand here tonight, for better or for worse, that's how I got here.
Did someone ask the follow-up with how have you changed?
No. I think there was also the idea of just.
We'll get Wilczek to do it.
Yeah, there you go. I think it's also just the inference from it, given the whole context of what he's saying, was he knows how to not necessarily make changes. Like, I know how to change up what we're doing.
Oh, okay.
Like that kind of a thing. But this was the lengthy answer. This is about a minute and a half long, this answer. This was probably the longest answer he gave all night. And he was asked basically like, okay, 30-year drought, like, you're the constant here.
30. Like 30. When I moved here, I was like, I saw the dollar signs. I saw the Scrooge McDuck. And I was like, I know what the Cowboys had been, but you never could have told me in our 15 years together that they wouldn't be in the NFC Championship game. And if they were, we'd be sleeping on dollar bills.
Well, listen, because the previous 15 years, I mean, you got here when we started this show in 2011, they were 2 years removed from winning their first playoff game since they won the Super Bowl. That happened in 2009.
30, not the conference title game.
I know.
I don't believe in jinxes, but it really does kind of make you stop for a second and say, was a deal with the devil made? was a selling of the soul.
I'll get you those 3.
Something that happened.
Yeah. That's exactly what it is. This is just for my own frame of reference. You know your favorite just hardcore song is "Hit 'Em Up" by Tupac, right?
Yep.
The last time the Cowboys made the NFC title game, that song would not come out for another 6 months. That's how long it's been.
Wow.
Tupac had never released an album with Death Row Records the last time the Cowboys were in the conference title game.
Man.
Which is wild to think about. All right, so this is the one where he kind of took the most accountability, but it was brought up the idea of it's been 30 years. You're the constant here. So what is your hand in this 30-year drought?
I'll admit that the Cowboys management has played a role, a big role, and then we'll talk in third party around here a little bit too, if you want to, but the management needs to talk to the general manager, okay? We'll get in that game. But seriously, I'm very disappointed at the way that we're structured, and my role puts us here tonight. I'm tremendously disappointed. And I can tell you right now, one of the reasons that I've enjoyed some of the things that work for me is because I will change, and I do change. And I can make a decision, and I can make if you will, not controversial is the one I'm looking for, but just one that is different from the ones I've been making. And I'm just saying that I don't want to sit here and talk about myself, but just look at it. And if you look at the years that we've been involved here, I've made a lot of different kinds of decisions based on a lot of different logic. And I'm not afraid to change it up at all. Not afraid's not the word for it, in the interest of being better than we are tonight.
And I think the line he had there, which I may be off by a word or two, but he said the way that we're structured in my role has brought us here tonight, and that he hates that that's a reality. That's about as much direct saying this has been all my fault.
Yeah, but he also said I'm not afraid to change it up. Okay, you might not be afraid to, but you refuse to.
Yeah, what's he talking about?
Sure.
Couple questions. Number one, why is he kind of falling on the sword right now a little bit more than usual? Is it because he doesn't have injury excuse? Like, it helps them in a way when Dak misses 6 games, and they can all go to injuries. Is it because with one more loss, they're going to have back-to-back under 500 seasons for the first time since 2000 to 2002? That's what would happen. One more loss, they're going to have consecutive losing years for the first time since going 5-11.
Yeah.
Why now? What big major changes are you talking about? Eberflus? Eberflus is the scapegoat. Not that he's not a deserved scapegoat, but Eberflus is the one that Jerry is going to push off the side of the boat. And here's my bigger, internal review life question and point. If I failed at something for 30 years, why would I ever think that my next decision was the right one? How many times would I second guess myself? First off, I'd remove myself from the situation and try to bring in someone with more expertise, and hope that my ego, my need to be recognized, because that's what this is, my need to be recognized and defeat the ghost of Jimmy Johnson just continues to haunt him. And he doesn't care. Again, I say this 50,000 times. It's like the rock star that wants to be the athlete and the athlete who wants to be the movie star. Jerry Jones, his dream in life is not to be recognized as the billionaire, brilliant
the oil man.
businessman, the oil man. Jerry Jones wants to be at the football table. When he walks in a room, there's a CEO billionaires table and there's a Bill Parcells football table. And Jerry's standing, it's like the sixth person waiting to play blackjack. Jerry's standing outside of the football guys who are sitting down, looking over like,
I don't gamble.
Are you getting up? Are you getting ready to leave? Can I get in here somehow, some way? Yeah. That's his dream and aspiration from those damn Arkansas football days, to be one of the football guys. And that has cursed and made the Metroplex suffer for 3 decades. But why would you ever think your next move is going to be the right one? If anything, I'd start thinking opposite, like George Costanza.
That's the entrepreneurial spirit, okay? And you don't have it, and I don't have it, and Bobby doesn't have it, and Peyton doesn't have it. And that's how entrepreneurs get there. They don't view it as failing 30 times. They view it as finding 30 ways for it not to work. That's the old Thomas Edison line. He failed a million times to make a light bulb, but he said, I didn't fail. I found 1,000 ways the light bulb doesn't work.
Right.
And that's how entrepreneurs get to where they are.
Yep.
And the problem is that generally entrepreneurs don't have 50 million fans. Right? They don't have
or $50 million.
Or $50 million. They got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Right? They're just like, hey, I'm just here trying to make a buck.
The biggest joke, LOL statements from Jerry and Steven over the last week were, we pay our price, we suffer in our own ways on your yacht because you don't have the best cell phone service on the jet. Do you go around town and
those jets are bumpy.
You go around town and get jeered or have fans toss drinks at you? No. Not in Highland Park. Not with your security team. Not with your detail, and not in the back of the luxury vehicle that you're riding around in. So you're not suffering the same way as a fan. Unless you have this, you don't have enough internal guilt to change it up. You don't have enough internal guilt to swap things out. So that's what I've chuckled at over the last 2 weeks with Jerry and Steven saying the price they pay is just one we just don't see.
I think they do pay a price in the sense of, like, just with any of us, like, for instance,
to be known as football failures, that is a price.
Yeah, I mean, there is that, because that's clearly like what,
like, they're a national joke,
and that's the last thing Jerry wants. Jerry wants to be respected on that front. But also, I mean, like for instance, we could have everything going right here overall, and there could be all these different things that we're checking all these boxes. And
you talking about with the show?
Yeah, with the show. And you could be in just a really, like, bad space if the ratings aren't where you want them to be. And that's something where, like, some of the listeners would be like, what's the big deal? Like, what does that matter? And, like, they can't comprehend. There's not really probably a way for you to be able to explain why that's something that, like, would weigh on you, or why that's something that would weigh on me, or why it's something that would weigh on anybody else here, that whenever that sort of thing happens, it's hard to, like, comprehend, like, okay, yeah, but it's just, it matters to us that, like that we're in that spot. And so I think similarly, like, that has to weigh on them from that standpoint of, like, I'm sure they don't want to feel like failures. I'm sure every time he drilled a well that came up dry, he felt the same sort of way he does with this team. But this is a good example why I think it should be required viewing for anybody who's a Cowboys fan, is going to continue to be a Cowboys fan. You need to watch the Netflix documentary, because I think so many of this is explained away in terms of, like, why would he continue to think that? Like, just listen to him talk about, like, the way he struck it rich, basically just threw all of it on black, and that was the play, and then he like bet on this one last oil well, and it hit. And so there's almost this sort of feeling with him, it feels like, of like, well, fortune just follows me. Like it's always going to follow me in the end. It's going to hit for me in the end. And there's so much that when you watch the reaction to the Landry firing and the way he got just destroyed, that it makes it a little bit more. You can at least comprehend, I think, a little bit better how, if you were told consistently how dumb you were through all that and then you ended up being right, it'd probably give you a little bit of a God complex that says, you can't tell me anything because I've heard the worst you have to say, and I was right the time you said that I was the absolute worst.
He goes into his bunker. Like he'll go and every time that criticism comes, he'll bring the people that are close to him closer into the bunker and then shun everybody else. People are bringing the fan text, like just the coaching hires. And this is nothing against Brian Schottenheimer, but Schottenheimer's making $4.5 million. Ben Johnson signed for $13 million this year. Ben Johnson was available. You had a coaching opening, didn't you? You didn't even interview him.
Didn't interview him.
Is that because you don't?
Johnson didn't want to interview here.
Sure, right, yeah, of course. No, nobody wants to be the Cowboys head coach.
No, he didn't though. Ben Johnson didn't have any interest in coming here. Those were the reports.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm sure he would have taken an interview.
Sure,
this is a guy who would. I'm sure he would have taken an interview, right?
Sure. I would hope.
Right. So
I know they all seem very personal with each other between those two organizations. He may not have.
Maybe. But like it's just.
But the point is also he was never gonna hire a Belichick. Like he doesn't care enough. He doesn't care enough to. It's like MJ or Kobe, right? Did Michael care enough in the championship to pass to Paxson, or did he have to win his first title scoring? Did Kobe care enough to give it up to Shaq against the Spurs? Like, at some point in time, you got to show how much. They don't care enough to really change it just to see. You can always go back to being GM. You can always have Steven take back over, but they have to do it their way, which is selfish and egotistical.
Yeah, I think that in their mind, or specifically in Jerry's mind, and I'm not saying this is right, I'm just saying to try and think of, like, what is the thought process
And
there?
my point in that was, like, they were never going to hire Parcells 2.0 and someone like Belichick because it has to be the porridge. It has to be someone that's not going to get more credit than me. It's got to be a Jason Garrett, someone I saw. It's got to be a Brian Schottenheimer, a humongous gamble. I can get the credit if they win the title.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is that he views it as, like, when you're like, can he check the ego to, like, pass to Paxson? I think he feels like he passed to Paxson 3 times already. And he needs to, he's not going to do that anymore.
When?
The 3 titles they won. Like I think that publicly he thinks people feel like he did give up the ball, and that was Jimmy. And so because of that, I think he feels like I still don't have my shot over, Byron Russell.
Yeah.
I need that moment.
But that should have happened when they won the early titles. It shifted to, well, Jimmy did that. Jerry, you were just there because of the divorce.
Yeah.
But, like, I would have a hard time imagining if we covered that first title or we covered the back-to-back title, we're not praising Jerry Jones for the genius of finding and bringing in Jimmy Johnson. But because the ego factored in, like, Jerry does deserve credit for Jimmy.
Absolutely.
A ton of credit. We're like, wow, you rolled the dice on this college hire and you stuck with him after winning 1 game or 2 games or whatever it was. But because the divorce happened and then the drought, then we turn on Jerry and say, you didn't really do anything.
It feels very, the more you're sitting here describing it, the more I'm sitting here processing it, it does feel very similar to Nico Harrison, where Nico was just like, Nico had about the most bulletproof reputation in the city as a front office executive before the trade.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh man, it got him here. He had the gamble on Kyrie. This worked out. Yeah, at the end of the day, you're still going, it's Kyrie and Luka. Like, nobody's like talking about Nico, but like there's that aspect of it. So then he goes and makes the move that he thinks will show off his genius and causes a divorce that has the whole city turn on you, basically. And that's what happened with the Jimmy divorce. And then it's like, I think similarly, if they would have won a title with AD, I still swear, if they were competitive this year and won a title, I still don't think there are people in the city that are forgiving him for getting rid of Luka.
I agree.
No.
And I think similarly, they just go, it was a fluke. You still don't get credit for that. You get no credit for trading him away.
What I actually think Jerry, when he's like, I make changes, what I think Jerry actually does behind the scenes is delegate more. The problem for Jerry's perception and persona, or maybe it's not a problem because he loves his name in the headlines, I do believe he lets Steven and Will and everyone else kind of do a lot of the football stuff, and Jerry just wants to be notified and included at the meetings so that he can talk about it on the radio with a general manager flavor, right?
He's got a veto pen, basically.
Yeah.
And it's a veto pen he doesn't use very often. Sometimes he does.
Auto pen?
But he generally, like over the last decade, Jerry's approach, this is the whole fight I got into in Oxnard. Remember that morning we came back and they're like, oh, Bobby was getting into it at Rudder Room last night.
I thought that's because you had the girl's lipstick in your car.
No.
Oh.
And I've never heard that was that was a compact. Don't make that sound like a different story in case Kristen's listening. No, Kristen, we're talking about the
Kristen
compact.
knows better. Kristen's lost that card. She's 0 for 2.
Yeah, exactly. So, no, but when Nick Harris came back, he's like, I don't think I've heard structure more times than I did last night. And that was the whole thing that I argued that night was that I don't think they have the natural structure that they're built. I don't think that's a inherently unhealthy way to run an organization right now. Of Jerry is the CEO who puts together a group of like 6 people who share the opinions. They build consensus. He sits over the consensus, kind of directs it. And then once they present it to him, he generally lets it go through and very rarely uses his veto pen. I don't think that's an unhealthy way to do it.
Yeah.
At that point, you need to start asking the question, do you have the right people in that circle?
Right.
And everything like that. But the actual structure of it is not inherently bad.
I'd kill to get Will McClay drunk. Like Spittle, just send us to Indianapolis for this with some per diem for a bar tab, and I want to know from Will, true lie detector on, what would be like the top 5 things you would do differently here that Jerry wouldn't do if you were the general manager? I'd be fascinated to know how different that list of things would actually be. Or would Will say, I'm kind of already doing it. I have that power. I have that say. What would be the biggest 3 to 5 different changes that McClay would do if Jerry was totally out of the picture? Because I think that would give us the answer to how much Jerry interferes and how much Jerry meddles and how much Jerry is really in the way versus the delegation that I do believe is happening.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's...
But we do have to hold Jerry accountable for, like, the Micah thing. That's on Jerry Jones.
So
when they make a 6-round trade, I blame that. I attribute that. I hold the scouting department and those people. Jerry doesn't know they're trading. He didn't know who Jonathan Mingo was. But the Micah thing, Jerry blew that up. When it comes to delaying the contracts and taking the shots at CeeDee Lamb or having these things go overboard, I blame Jerry and Steven for that.
There's a lot of...
he's not totally innocent.
I will say he blew up the Micah thing in the sense that, like, he was the final hurdle. There were a lot of people in that circle who already were trying to blow it up and didn't want him here. And I think it just took, like, it got done finally. But like, Jerry was kind of, for a lot of people who are like, man, you got rid of Micah. I think a lot of people need to understand Jerry was one of the last lines of resistance that kept him here.
Okay. Sorry, Chapter.
Like, to me, when it comes to situations like that, I understand, like, what is the difference between Jerry and a lot of the GMs that never played football, right? Like, let's use Howie Roseman. Howie Roseman's thought of as, like, the GOAT of the GMs right now. Do any of us really think that Howie Roseman's out there breaking down film? Or is he using the scouts to give him the information and then operate like a stock trader and just trading stock chips? That, to me, is what he does. That's the same thing that Jerry does. Now, the difference is Howie is... apparently, a far more shrewd, willing to trade more assets, and he does things on time. He doesn't delay.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with the structure from the standpoint of, like, all right, he's getting information, he's making the decision based on the information in hand. Because most, like, today in the analytical world, Chris Young is the unicorn GM who actually played the game. Those GMs aren't around anymore. Like, in any sport, like, those GMs, for the most part, don't exist. It's like the nerd. It's the geek.
What it comes down to at the end of the day for me is if I ran something that was so, important to the city. Jerry Jones is basically the mayor of Arlington and the mayor of DFW. Because the Dallas Cowboys are so loved that they're still number one in the ratings despite this 30-year drought. And if I wasn't good at something that so many people cared about, I would like to think that I could step aside and try it another way. For the importance of the city, for me to get credit for the maturity of doing it. Like if Jerry 10 years ago stepped aside and let Troy Aikman be the GM, he would have received a hero's welcome. But that's not the welcome he yearns for. That's not the final applause he wants. He wants to stand on the podium with Roger Goodell, with that GM. When they pop up the Chiron, Jerry Jones, it has to say owner/GM. It cannot just say owner. And that's the difference between Jerry and a lot of owners. He needs the title credit, and other owners are like, I can still get my shine. I can be Robert Kraft and have Bill Belichick being given a ton of credit, and Robert Kraft is going to the Hall of Fame too. Jerry just he has a need for the credit, and it's a curse.
One more clip here for you, and I just had Peyton grab this one because you made reference to it a little bit ago, that this year's probably a little harder for him because he doesn't have the default to fall back on of, well, the quarterback was hurt or we didn't get this or that or whatever else. So he was asked last night, Jerry, do you feel like you've wasted one of Dak's better, healthier years?
Well, that's a good way to look at things is when you've got good play, and we had some, for instance, I'll bet when we graded, I'll bet Tyler Smith really played well at left tackle out there, which was pretty impressive when you have your first game out there. So, again, you can always find things that you're proud of. I know that for our fans and for all of us, we need more success in winning these ball games.
Yeah, they wasted a Dak year.
Yeah.
Dak Prescott played very, very, very well this year. Not good in that second half. There's been moments, but you told me that Dak's going to throw for 4,000 yards, Pickens going to have 1,000, and Dak's going to play all the games. You missed the playoffs. Blown missed opportunity.
I mean, this is the first year
with the Eagles doing this as well.
This is the first year since Parcells was here where their quarterback didn't get hurt. And they're going to have a losing season.
First year?
Didn't get hurt in terms of what sense? Like, didn't miss a single game?
Miss significant time.
There were some of those 8-8 years where...
But that's not a losing season.
Yeah.
No, I thought you were talking about missing the playoffs.
Oh, no. Yeah, they missed the playoffs, just not have a losing season. And they're going to wind up being, they might, I guess they still could have a 500 record. But, there's a chance they don't,
They probably
obviously.
still will. Those two teams
still
are bad.
will, but here we are. Dak didn't get hurt, and they're going to wind up maybe having a losing record. That hasn't happened when the quarterback doesn't get hurt in a very long time.